Here are 3 mistakes I made when trying to fix my acid reflux so you can avoid them and fix yourself in 2 weeks instead of 2 years like it took me. The first mistake is thinking that your acid levels are too high. Acid reflux is a problem of acid in the wrong place. That doesn't necessarily mean your acid levels are too high. In fact, the most obvious sign that your acid levels are too high is that you have a stomach ulcer. And what normally happens is you catch an H. pylori bacterial infection, and then your body tries to fight back against that infection by killing it, by raising your acid levels temporarily, which can damage the lining of your stomach, causing an ulcer. That for me is the only sign that your acid is high. But if you don't have an ulcer, but you have acid reflux, you have acid in the wrong place. Acid should be in your stomach, which is in this region here. Now, if you have acid in your esophagus, it's likely that you have something interfering with what we call the lower esophageal sphincter, and it is allowing acid back up into the esophagus. But that does not mean your acid levels are too high. And that's the first mistake I made, believing that my acid levels were too high. The second mistake I made that was believing drugs like omeprazole and Zantac were actually going to fix my problem long term. And again, this points back to the original problem I had, was thinking my acid levels were too high. And to be honest with you, if you need temporary relief, those drugs can be a fantastic relief. There is no point in you suffering every single day with burning acid reflux just because you don't want to take the drugs. I don't recommend you do that. And if you want to speak to anyone about drugs, please speak to the physician or your doctor who gave you the drugs in the first place. But it can only buy you time. It cannot fix your underlying problem. If you want to fix your underlying problem, you're going to have to get to the root cause of your issue. Now finally, the root cause of the issue for me is pretty much down to 3 things in 99.9% of people, and we'll discuss them now. The first one is having a H. pylori bacterial infection. The only problem with this bacteria is it's very difficult to digest. It releases an enzyme called urase, and one of the urase's jobs is to decrease the acid production inside your stomach to allow H. pylori to survive. Remember, this bacteria likes a low acid environment so that it can survive and thrive and burrow itself deep into the walls of the stomach. But that release of urase also masks your body's ability to pick up H. pylori in testing, which is why blood testing and breath testing and stool testing, and even sometimes your endoscopy, if you're taking PPI medication as well, actually masks your result. In fact, there is science to say that you have a 56% chance of picking up a false negative H. pylori result if you're taking omeprazole in the 15 days preceding your test. So you really want to make sure that if you're going to have an endoscopy to check whether you have H. pylori inside your stomach, then you're not taking your medication for at least 15 days. Please speak to your doctor about that. So a lot of times I've come across people who have a H. pylori infection, they have all the symptoms, they just can't find it in the test. In cases like that, I would use the herbs inside a pylori, which was something I designed when I had H. pylori because I didn't want to take antibiotics because 1, antibiotics damage the body's microbiome, which is a much bigger problem to fix than the H. pylori, but 2, it doesn't always work. And often after you've had that first round of triple therapy, which is 2 types of antibiotics plus the omeprazole, if that doesn't work, they often give you the same thing again and again and again. And I've seen people who've had 4 or 5 rounds of antibiotics to try to kill H. pylori and they still have the problem. So I always prefer to use herbs where possible. The second problem that goes unnoticed in a lot of people is having a yeast overgrowth causing your acid reflux. Now, yeast, or candida is probably the primary yeast that causes a lot of these issues, is what we call a commensal part of your microbiome. Everybody should have yeast, and in small amounts it can be beneficial. For example, it helps you break down the toxins from alcohol when you ingest large amounts. Very useful. But in large amounts, the yeast, it causes problems. It can cause issues in and around your tongue and your mouth, and you're swallowing it, causing interference with the lower esophageal sphincter. It can cause difficulty swallowing. You can have that lump in the throat sensation where food almost feels like it gets stuck. That can also happen with H. pylori too. It can infect your oral cavity and your teeth and your tonsils and on your tongue as well. So you could have yeast or you could have H. pylori in your mouth, and currently the testing isn't great for either of those things. What I would recommend if you'd like to rule that out is take the yeast purge capsules. That was something I designed to kill yeast, but you have to open the capsules into water, swish them around your mouth, gargle and swallow. That way you can attack the candida and the biofilms inside of the mouth that's causing that issue. The final one is not having a gallbladder. Now, a lot of people have their gallbladder removed, especially ladies. It's really common for ladies to have problems with their gallbladder. We don't really know why, but what we do know is when you remove your gallbladder, you reduce your body's ability to digest fats. The gallbladder stores bile that's produced by your liver. When you eat a large fatty meal, it squirts out bile from your gallbladder into your small intestine, where it breaks the fat globules down from large ones into smaller ones. When you don't have a gallbladder, bile constantly leaks out from the liver or from the bile ducts and ends up inside the stomach sometimes, and that can be seen on an endoscopy, but not always, and that can result in things like acid reflux, gastritis, hernia, difficulty swallowing, lumping throat sensation. Again, you can get all of those symptoms from H. pylori, from yeast, or from not having a gallbladder. Now, if you have acid reflux and you don't know where to start, I made a free quiz at myacidrefluxquiz.com. If you go there now, you can fill out a short quiz and it'll try and point you in the right direction of what your problem is likely to be. Now, it's possible that you could have H. pylori and yeast at the same time, but the quiz will pick that up. And if you have no gallbladder, we always recommend you try some pylori first, because we know that H. pylori can affect the gallbladder. But not only that, it can cause gallstones, and there's no way for you to check whether you have H. pylori inside your gallbladder while your gallbladder is still part of your body. The only way to know would be to do a biopsy after your gallbladder has been removed, in which case it's already too late because your gallbladder is gone. So for me, those are the three main causes of acid reflux that I wish I knew years ago. It would have saved me a ton of problems, a ton of money, and instead of focusing on just suppressing my acid, I would have been able to try to get to the root cause of the problem. Hopefully that's helpful. I make more videos on here every week, so please subscribe and follow along and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of the videos that we make here. Thanks very much.